If you have looked at your bills recently and felt a sudden panic, you aren't imagining things. Everything from groceries to rent is pulling more cash out of your wallet than it did just a few months ago. The roots of this domestic inflation stretch beyond local supply shortages, stemming directly from the historic freefall of the Indian Rupee against the US dollar. This chart maps the dramatic collapse we are talking about. Recently, the rupee slumped to an all-time weak level, edging dangerously close to 96 rupees for a single US dollar. When a local currency loses value like this, every single item India buys from the rest of the world instantly becomes more expensive to bring across the border, and India imports a massive amount of its basic necessities. The most critical of these is crude oil. With global oil prices pushing past $100 a barrel, paying for that fuel with a weakened currency means the cost of transport and manufacturing spikes immediately. So, the sticker shock you feel at the store is the direct result of an unfavorable exchange rate, forced upon a nation that relies heavily on expensive global commodities. To understand how one currency dictates prices across the planet, we have to look back to the end of the Second World War. Exiting the war with unparalleled economic stability and a massive military advantage, the United States made a highly strategic move. They tied the value of the dollar directly to gold. That single decision gave the world a standard of trust, successfully cementing the US dollar as the default currency for international trade. This chart illustrates the mathematical reality of that history. Today, a massive 86% of all foreign exchange transactions involve the US dollar. Overlaying trade data, we see 54% of all global trade is directly invoiced in dollars, regardless of the buyer or seller. This means every developing nation is essentially forced to operate within a rigid financial framework designed decades ago by a single superpower. When we bring that reality back to India's national ledger, we run into the structural problem of a trade deficit. This simply means the country is buying more from the world than it is selling. This balanced scale visual highlights the massive size of India's deficit, with recent financial figures towering between $95 billion and $119 billion. Those billions represent physical necessities, ranging from raw energy imports to massive infrastructure components, like the solar panels required to build out domestic green technology. Because of the global dominance established after World War II, India cannot buy these necessities with rupees. It must convert its local currency into dollars just to execute the transaction. This constant forced conversion creates a basic supply and demand problem. It floods the international market with rupees, while simultaneously driving up the demand for dollars. Add in foreign investors pulling billions of dollars in capital directly out of the domestic markets, and that economic imbalance worsens rapidly. A weakening rupee is exactly what you get when a country consistently imports more than it exports under a system entirely dominated by the dollar. It is a mathematical certainty. The pain of this mathematical trap is felt globally, and it is triggering major geopolitical reactions. The BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, are working at the highest diplomatic levels to bypass the dollar and avoid these currency constraints. This chart tracks the steady decline of local purchasing power, illustrating a historic trend where the domestic currency loses 3 to 5% of its value every single year. To combat this, the government introduced the Liberalized Remittance Scheme in 2004, providing a critical defense mechanism for the individual citizen. This scheme allows residents to legally transfer their capital overseas. Instead of being locked into a depreciating domestic market, individuals can build globally diversified portfolios. By investing directly into U.S. stock markets or large-scale global hardware companies, investors can actively convert this systemic national weakness into a personal financial advantage. When you hold assets denominated in dollars, the value of your portfolio actually increases in local terms, precisely because the dollar strengthens against the rupee. In a world structured by dollar hegemony, mastering these global economic mechanisms provides a necessary shield for everyday financial security.